We are constantly surprised when people come to see us about property investment advice about how little they understand about the power of leverage or using other people's money in order to build their portfolios. And from my own personal example, where this comes from, it was passed down to me from my parents, who told me as soon as I take on debt, the most important thing in life was to pay off that debt as quickly as possible. But what they didn't grasp was the difference between good debt and bad debt. And good debt is when you borrow in order to purchase an asset that goes up in value, as opposed to bad debt where you borrow to purchase an asset that goes down in value, like a car. So to help us understand the power of leverage, I've come up with a simple example to share with you that will demonstrate this. So let's take two people, person one and person two. Both person one and person two are going to purchase a $1 million asset, and let's say in this case that it's going to be a house. Now person number one pays $1 million in cash because he has a lot of cash available. Person number two pays a $200,000 deposit and borrows the rest from the bank. Now person number one chooses a better property than person number two. So let's assume that the property that is purchased by person number one goes up by 7% in terms of capital gains. So that means he earns about $70,000 in year one. Person number two chooses a poorer property and only gets a 5.5% capital gain. So this means that he makes $55,000 in the first year. Person number one again gets a premium yield on their property. So in this scenario, he gets a 6% yield and makes $60,000 in 1 year. Yield is essentially the amount of rent that a person pays per week times by 52, so i.e. the annual amount of rent that is paid for a property divided by the property price. Person number two gets a 4.5% yield, so therefore they make $45,000 in their first year. But person number two also needs to pay interest on the $800,000 that they borrowed from the bank in order to pay for their investment. So let's assume in this scenario that they have to pay a 5% interest. So this means 5% of $800,000 is about $50,000. So the question is, which one is a better investment? Person number one makes $130,000 worth of profit. Person number two makes a profit of about $50,000. So on the surface, person number one makes a better investment because they make $130,000, whereas person number two only makes $50,000. What do you think? Person number one actually makes a 13% return on their investment, $130,000 divided by the $1 million that they invested. Again, on the surface this seems like a fantastic investment. But person number two, what they actually invested was $200,000. So they've made a profit of $50,000 against their $200,000 deposit, even after they paid the interest to the bank, meaning although they chose an inferior property compared to person number one, they've actually made a $25,000 return on investment on their property. So if you're looking for more, visit us at buildapropertyportfolio.net for free tips and strategies that are going to further your education in the property investment space. To get access to our free property market updates that are prepared by our in-house research team. You can get a strategy guide on building a multi-property portfolio. However, all of this information is generic in nature and is not designed to cater towards your specific circumstances. For us to do that, we need to engage you in a free 2-hour property portfolio planning session, where we'll introduce our systems, strategies and services for building a property portfolio, We'll give you an overview of the Australian property market. We'll conduct a portfolio analysis of your current situation using our proprietary software. We'll establish a customised strategic plan to help you build a diversified property portfolio over time, and we'll answer any questions you might have on property investment. To book your session, visit us at buildapropertyportfolio.net.